Minnesota we're working on. Very typical of a 40. Here's the property lines drawn in. One of the first things we consider when we look at a property like this, we zoom in a little bit, is where the deer are going to bed. Very important. And the deer can bed anywhere on this property that there's trees because all of these low areas are reed canary grass, which means it's very swampy. So anywhere that the trees are growing, reed canary, reed canary, reed canary, it's all over the place. Anywhere there's trees growing is higher ground and it's wooded. So the deer can use that for bedding because they have some elevation, they have a view of what's going on. It makes it very difficult to walk around a lot of this property because if you walk in the trees, you're stepping on the deer. If you try to sneak around the outside of the trees, they're using a topographic elevated advantage to see you as you approach. So we'll consider that. So before it becomes a real big deal, let's look at the local ag. Now our row crops on this property here are primarily to the north. And what that means is no matter how much food we have on our property, unless it's half, unless we have 10, 20 acres of food, these deer are going somewhere else at night to feed. They're heading to the corn, they're heading to the beans, they're heading to the alfalfa, and almost all of that, as you can see, is north. It's a little farther off to the west we have some, but the primary food source for these deer that bed here, because they're going to bed close to the food that they go to at night, is going to be to the north. Bearing that in mind, when we come back and look at where these deer are bedding, our access points are, we have an access from the north line, and we have access from the east line. Areas of human activity where we can go ahead and access this property and it doesn't really bother the deer. People walk their dogs there, they ride their bikes there, they ride four-wheelers, everything goes on. So that's our access. So when we look at it, if we have to access here and the deer bed here, that makes it difficult. If we have to access here and the deer bed here, 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 very difficult. So we're only going to encourage bedding that affords us access. We can bed here, 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 here. We're all in good shape. So let's get rid of the areas that the deer want to bed in and we don't want them to bed in. Now, how do we do that? Well, in a more comprehensive plan, we'll show you how to improve these bedding areas in different settings to get the deer to use those areas more. Will they still want to bed in these areas? Yes. But if we improve these areas, we can dictate bedding. We can make deer bed there 7 times out of 10 instead of 2 times out of 10, which allows us to create a plan. And what would that plan be here in this scenario? Probably going to put in some food plots with east access and north access in mind. If we're going to plant food, if we're going to clear land and spend the money on lime, seed, fertilizer, and the equipment, the time to put it in, we have to make sure we can access it to hunt it. These are 2 spots on the property. If we can push the deer back just a little bit, that we can put in the screen food plot from the east line that the deer will frequent during daylight. We can put in the screen food plot, screening up here, food plot here, that we can access from the north line that the deer will frequent during daylight. The beautiful thing about this plot up here is it's in a line of contiguous cover. They have all these trees, all this cover to take them to the property line, and they can wait here till it gets dark to go across the road to the neighboring ag, especially on this food plot here. It'll take them right across the road. This line here might also be a good spot for a food plot. We can put a plot in right here. If the deer are using that line of cover to get on and off the property, we could have a food plot right here. We could screen that on the side. Take that same screening, 3 types of grasses, that same type of screening, and screen it from that side, and we could have a ground blind access over here that's taking those deer off the property. So that could be another viable tool that will work with those bedding options. Take them through this line of trees, off into this neighbor's property in the dark, off to this food plot, or this ag area, off to this ag area. So the local ag is going to dictate where those deer feed at night. If we can encourage the deer on this 40 to use these bedding areas, they're close enough that we're going to see them during daylight if we don't disturb them. And if they bed back here, the odds of us disturbing them are way lower than if they bed here, here, or here. If they bed up close to our spots where we access, the odds are higher. We're going to bump them, we're going to push them through the property, and we're going to spook all of these deer. Now, this in mind, if we can encourage this kind of use, what's going to happen during the rut is that if we know where those does are bedded and we don't bother them, that creates predictable lines of movement for those bucks to follow during the rut. So what the bucks can do with any kind of north wind is they can cruise this line, come from this ridge off the neighbors, check this bedding area, this bedding area, this bedding area, all with their nose. They can check all of these bedding areas in this whole ridge right here with their nose. If it's a south wind, they can cruise this side of the property in the cover where they want to stay, where it's safe, and they can check all those bedding areas again. So again, we get the deer pegged into these places. We can hunt them bed to feed because we're close enough without disturbing them when we access bed to feed, bed to feed. We can hunt them feed to bed coming back at night. A little more difficult, but we can do it. By accessing from the east here, we can probably slide back in here. This is higher impact, but you could slide back around here to hunt them too. Coming back from these food plots, filtering back through this area onto the neighbors too if they go down into that area. And then to finish it all off, we can put in some social features. We can put in a licking branch. We can put in a water hole on these food plots to give the deer one more reason to visit it. So that's a typical way we blow up this property. Where are the deer going to bed? Where are we going to encourage them to bed? Where are the deer going to feed at night? Very important. Corn, beans, alfalfa. Very important. These deer are probably all heading north. How do we become a part of that deer's day? We do that by putting our food between these big destination plots and where these deer feed in an area that we can get in and out of and hunt that spot. And then by dictating this deer bedding and leaving it alone during September and October, the November rut schedule, those bucks know the does are there. They know it's an unpressured area when they check it. North wind, they got routes to safely check it. We got stand locations to intercept them. South wind, they have a route to check. We have stand locations to intercept them. So this 40 with north and east access, pretty cut and try. Every property is different, but this is the thought process that goes into a lot of these smaller plans for $99 or $599.